The skeleton throne of Holy Talisman Tianzuan looks very familiar to me, and even the skeleton army looks somewhat familiar. But he couldn't remember. This soul didn't have that memory. Lin Moyu didn't know what Saint Talisman Tianzuan was thinking. The 5 skeleton kings waved their bone swords and struck the talisman sword with incomparable precision. With every impact, the skeleton king will be knocked back by the huge force, and the sword will also be knocked back a certain distance. However, the talisman sword recovered quickly. Before the skeleton king could recover, the talisman sword had already returned. There are 5 Xinghao skeleton kings, and the 5 skeleton kings take turns to appear, completely blocking the talisman sword. Lin Moyu changed from a fugitive to a theatergoer. Lin Moyu's eyes flickered. He first became invincible and then found a way to get rid of Fu Jian. This thing is very strong. Although Skeleton King's bone sword is equally strong, its attack power is not enough to destroy it. Use the natural disaster scepter? This was Lin Moyu's first reaction. The natural disaster scepter was invincible and there was nothing it couldn't break, even the talisman sword was probably no exception. But if we don't use the natural disaster scepter, is there any other way? At this time, Holy Talisman Tianzuan raised his finger and tapped the talisman sword lightly. The Fu sword buzzed and became more fierce. Countless cracks appeared in the starry sky, and the talisman sword's mere breath was about to tear apart the space. The talisman sword continued to collide with the Skeleton King's bone sword. Fortunately, the bone sword was extremely strong. After 2 impacts, the talisman sword did not break it. After several consecutive attacks to no avail, Zaijian suddenly changed his angle. It suddenly turned around, bypassed the bone sword, and stabbed the Skeleton King directly. The Skeleton King's bones were broken, and his huge body flew backwards violently, quickly collapsing in the starry sky. The Skeleton King's body strength is far inferior to that of the bone sword and cannot withstand the attack of the time sword. The talisman sword was like lightning, stabbing another Skeleton King again. The Skeleton King wields his sword like rain, airtight. Advertisement. But the talisman sword was too fast and was stabbed anyway, causing the huge body to collapse on the spot. Lin Moyu looked at Holy Talisman Heavenly Venerable, and Holy Talisman Heavenly Venerate happened to be looking at Lin Moyu as well. The 2 people's eyes met in the starry sky. Holy Talisman Tianzuan smiled and said, "Your skeleton can't stop it anymore. Is there any other way?" Lin Moyu did not speak, but pointed towards the bone sword. White star spell, curse of time. Red light filled the air, and the bone sword was immediately affected by the curse, and its speed and attack were slightly weakened. But this is not enough. The law of time flows, and Lin Moyu changes the time flow rate of the bone sword. The speed of the bone sword suddenly slowed down, much slower than before. It could no longer bypass the Skeleton King's bone sword and was chopped off again and again. The Skeleton King, who had been shattered to pieces before, was also resurrected and played again. Holy Talisman Tianzuan exclaimed, "The law of time, not bad, not bad." He drew a rune at random, the rune lit up, and the rune sword disappeared immediately. The next moment, the talisman sword appeared in front of the Skeleton King, almost sticking to the Skeleton King, passing over the bone sword, and hitting the Skeleton King. With a bang, the Skeleton King was shattered on the spot. Teleport. Holy Fu Tianzuan gave Fu Jian a more powerful ability to break through the air, and Fu Jian began to teleport in the starry sky, becoming unstoppable. Lin Moyu squinted his eyes, knowing that he had to deal with not only the talisman sword, but also the manipulator of the Holy Talisman Tianzuan. Lin Moyu wielded 5 laws of time and landed on the Skeleton King. The Skeleton King's speed suddenly accelerated, but he could only barely cope with it. Then the laws of space flow in Lin Moyu's hands and merge with the laws of time to form a simple spacetime fifth. Holy Talisman Tianzuan was finally moved, the power of time and space. The power of time and space fell on the talisman sword, and the talisman sword stopped in place with a buzzing sound. Affected by the power of time and space, the time and space belonging to it were completely disrupted. Advertisement. It lost its ability to break through the air, could not travel through space, and lost its accuracy for a while. Holy Talisman Tianzuan drew the runes again and wanted to continue the talisman sword. A rune flew out, and before it landed on the rune sword, the formation suddenly unfolded. Lin Moyu used the containment talisman array to directly take away the runes of the Holy Talisman Tianzuan. Saint Fu Tianzuan raised his eyebrows and looked slightly surprised. He didn't expect Lin Moyu to have such an important operation. But the next second, something even more surprising happened. The bone hell suddenly appeared next to Holy Talisman Tianzuan and swallowed him up. Holy Talisman Tianzuan felt that he had entered another world, and the flames of hell were rushing towards his face, followed by the evil spirits of hell. He never expected that Lin Moyu would suddenly attack his opponent. Anger seemed to rise in the eyes of Holy Talisman Tianzuan, and a rune was generated from his fingertips and then exploded. Amidst the roar, the hell of bones shattered on the spot. Facing Tianzuan in the bone hell, even if it is just a ray of Tianzuan's soul, it is still far from enough. This was also expected by Lin Moyu. This was enough, and the mark had already fallen on the Holy Talisman Tianzuan. The Skeleton King suddenly turned around at the same time and drew his sword towards the Holy Talisman Tianzuan. Spell, Kill God. The sword light exploded on the body of Holy Talisman, and Holy Talisman's soul shook slightly. He frowned and seemed to feel a little pain, but that was all. The Skeleton King's attack has little effect on the soul of the Holy Talisman. Lin Moyu naturally understands this. He already knew the answer in the Mu Mysterious Realm before. Please give me flowers. The reason for doing this is more to show an attitude. If you continue to interfere, I will attack you as an enemy. Another meaning is that Lin Moyu just wants to see the reaction of Xingfu Tianzuan and see if he is included in this test. Currently, as the Sun, Xingfu Tianzuan has intervened several times in succession, but has not said anything clearly. How could Saint Fu Tianzuan not understand what Lin Moyu meant? He smiled and said, I said that you can use any method. Advertisement. With your strength, it will be difficult to kill me. You might as well think more about how to deal with the talisman sword. As he spoke, he drew the runes again, and the runes flashed past the containment talisman array arranged by Lin Moyu, and landed directly on the talisman sword. The talisman sword suddenly became stable, forming a stream of light on it, which blocked Lin Moyu's power of time and space. Fu Jian disappeared again and appeared in front of Lin Moyu in an instant. Suddenly, Fu Jian disappeared again, and the next second he had returned to the side of Holy Fu Tianzuan. At this moment, Saint Fu Tianzuan's eyes were extremely complicated, and there was even some fear. In the hands of Lin Moyu, a flame is burning slowly. The flame was not strong, but it had a terrifying aura. Just looking at the flames will make you feel as if you are going to be burned to death and the whole world will be burned down. The world-burning fire beats in Lin Moyu's palm. Holy Talisman Tianzuan looked at Lin Moyu and whispered, Why do you have his things? He is just a wisp of soul with incomplete memory. Lin Moyu said, Senior Tianzuan, do you want to continue? Holy Talisman Tianzuan knew the horror of the world-burning fire, and he knew very well that he could not stop it. If the fight continues, Lin Moyu may not be able to deal with Fu Jian, but he will definitely burn himself to death. After hesitating for a moment, Holy Talisman Tianzuan sighed softly, No need. He put away the talisman sword, and Lin Moyu also put away the Skeleton King and the world-burning fire. If he had known that the world-burning fire was so useful, he would have brought it long ago. Lin Moyu also realized the terror of the mysterious master. The world-burning fire left behind was even scary to the Heavenly Lord. The fear shown by Holy Talisman Tianzuan cannot be deceived. Lin Moyu can clearly feel it. Holy Talisman Tianzuan reached out and waved, and the ancient box beside him automatically flew to Lin Moyu. The reward is yours. At the same time, the Fu Jian began to transform and turned into a mountain of pearls. The ancient box and the inherited pearl flew to Lin Moyu one after another. The voice of the Holy Talisman Heavenly Lord came simultaneously. The Inheritance Pearl records the refining method of the rune magic weapon. As for the contents of the box, you can open it yourself in the future. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You are very good. You are unconventional and can think of attacking me instead of just fighting for the sword. It shows that your character is decisive and has no scruples. This is the best. If we had been like this back then, we wouldn't have ended up like this. The voice of Holy Talisman Tianzuan had a hint of silence, and it was like a sigh after completing a major event. Holy Talisman Tianzuan looked into the void. I know you still have questions, but the memory of this soul left by this Tianzuan is incomplete, and I don't know much. You should know, you will know sooner or later. When I saw the fire burning the world, I knew that he should have some arrangements. 050 inch. Maybe he made the right choice and we were wrong. Lin Moyu was a little unsure of what Saint Talisman Tianzuan was thinking. Listening to his tone, it seemed that he wanted to tell himself something, but because of his incomplete memory, he was not sure whether what he said was correct. Saint Fu Tianzuan's temper was too weird and a little moody. Lin Moyu could only say tentatively, Junior saw the boundary sea in Wujian. Holy Talisman Tianzuan's gaze, which was originally looking towards the distant void, was suddenly attracted and landed on Lin Moyu. His eyes were bright and substantive. You said you saw the boundary sea? How did you see it? What did you see? Lin Moyu said, the younger generation has seen the big world, and seen the big world floating forward in the boundary sea. Holy Talisman Tianzuan immediately asked, are you standing on the boundary sea or under the sea of thoughts? Lin Moyu said, above the boundary sea. At that time, he felt that the boundary sea was very dangerous. If he went down, he would die. Above the boundary sea, above the boundary sea. Holy Talisman Tianzuan kept murmuring, and Lin Moyu heard that there seemed to be a big difference between the boundary sea and the boundary sea. Holy Talisman Tianzuan said, you should be able to see the sea through a shell. Lin Moyu admitted directly and took out the shell at the same time. The shell has now become unremarkable, no different from an ordinary shell. It seems to have fallen into a deep sleep, and it is not known when it will recover. Holy Talisman Tianzuan looked at the shell and seemed to be a little nostalgic. It's really it, I didn't expect to see it again. 17. Lin Moyu asked, Senior, what is the use of this shell? Holy Talisman Tianzuan looked at Lin Moyu. It is very useful, but for you now, it can only allow you to see pictures outside the world. When you become stronger and become the supreme, it will have other effects. You will naturally know what it is used for when the time comes. You are really lucky. You can even get the seashells. It seems that the coward in Huan Yuan chose the wrong person. It turned out that this thing was called Jiahai Bei, and it really allowed him to see Jiahai. Lin Moyu felt that the Holy Talisman Heavenly Lord in front of him was easy to talk to, so he immediately asked, Senior, where exactly is the boundary sea? Holy Talisman Tianzuan chuckled and did not answer Lin Moyu. There is a rule you should always remember. If you want to know more, you have to go to a higher place. If your realm is not enough, the more you know, the faster you will die. Lin Moyu naturally knew this truth, but he still asked, in the boundary sea, this junior saw that one world was about to collide with the big world. Holy Talisman Tianzuan asked, in this troubled year, is the end of the big world coming soon? How long will it take for that world to meet the big world? Around 13 to 1400. Holy Talisman Tianzuan nodded. There is no unstoppable path for mankind. There are still opportunities in the big world, but you need to grasp it yourself at this time. I can't help you, but I can point you to two ways. The first one is that if you get to the Holy one day, you can go look for the ghost tribe. Maybe they can help you. Second, go find the things left by this heavenly Lord, it might be helpful. As the voice fell, the figure of Holy Talisman Tianzuan faded and left. Lin Moyu guessed that he should have gone to the rune office of the Great World. He felt guilty about this world back then. The final destination of these heavenly Lord souls is the Great World Rune. They want to use their remnant souls to do something for the Great World Rune. But what exactly he did to make up for it, Lin Moyu didn't know. He is still far from being able to contact the runes of the big world. He is too far away. He wrote down the words of Holy Talisman Tianzuan and murmured, "Does the ghost race, this legendary race, really exist? They can help me. Could it be that the ghost race is not a foreign race, but a race created by a certain deity?" Lin Moyu instinctively thought that the ghost tribe might be a race created by a certain heavenly lord like the Starry Sky Fishman tribe and the Starry Sky Spirit tribe. But you can't find it until you reach the Holy Lord, so there's no need to worry now. Holy Talisman Tianzuan left, and Lin Moyu also got into the battleship and re-entered the deep space. In the battleship, Lin Moyu took out the inheritance pearl and began to absorb the inheritance inside. This inheritance is the last one left by the Holy Talisman Tianzuan, and it is also the last piece of the puzzle of the Way of Runes. From the basic knowledge of runes, to the splitting, fusion, formation, and fine-tuning of runes, to the current method of refining runes. Unknowingly, the Holy Talisman Heavenly Lord had passed on all the knowledge of the Way of Runes to Lin Moyu. In the end, how far Lin Moyu can reach depends entirely on Lin Moyu's own destiny. A few days later, Lin Moyu, who was digesting the inheritance in the deep space, was awakened by a slight vibration. The vibration came from the deepest part of the world. At the same time as the vibration occurred, he felt that a trace of cause and effect between himself and the Holy Talisman Tianzuan disappeared. Sure enough, Holy Talisman Tianzuan went to the Great World Rune, and I don't know what he did. The past is past. Even if he is still alive, he has no connection with the big world. Holy Talisman Tianzuan left behind his inheritance and his soul, but he did not leave behind himself. Even if Lin Moyu obtains inheritance, there will be no causal relationship with him. This cause and effect was still cut off by Holy Talisman Tianzuan himself, and there must be a deep-seated reason. This is not only the case with Xingfu Tianzuan, but in Lin Moyu's opinion, other Tianzuan is also like this. It's like Huan Wu Tianzuan left Xiao Wu here, cutting off all the causal connections with Xiao Wu, and also cutting off all connections between himself and the big world. Those Tianzuan all did a great job. Lin Moyu can understand them, but he doesn't like their approach. But from another perspective, it seems understandable. After all, there is a saying in the human race, if a person does not serve himself, he will be destroyed by heaven and earth. Lin Moyu didn't mean to blame Tianzuan, he just didn't like it. He closed his eyes and stopped thinking about it, and continued to study the runes. With the method of refining the rune magic weapon, and after successfully refining the rune magic weapon, the combat power of the rune master will be greatly improved. The view that talisman masters were not good at fighting began to change at this moment. As long as a rune master has powerful rune magic weapons, his combat power will never be weaker than that of practitioners in the same realm, or even stronger. Lin Moyu's heart was touched, and he had the urge to refine the rune magic weapon. The battleship flew farther and farther in deep space, away from the human race and away from the battle hub. The war in the Great World has been ongoing, and its scale continues to escalate. Lin Moyu's plan was adopted, and on the 4 battlefields, human cultivators formed small teams to act. Teams consist of either 4 or 6 members for smaller groups. For larger groups, teams consist of 10 or 20 members. Humans no longer focus on gathering resources, but start slaughtering other races. Kill on sight without mercy, not questioning right or wrong, only distinguishing between life and death. People suddenly discovered that killing other races for resources was as efficient as gathering them on their own. This realization greatly increased the interest of human cultivators. As the news spread, more human cultivators came to hunt other races. Naturally, other races would not just wait to be killed, they also began to act in teams, preparing to fight on a larger scale. And on the military side, the battles became even more fierce. Clashes occurred repeatedly, from initial probing to full-on warfare. More and more troops were deployed by all races, and humans, not to be outdone, also mobilized a huge number of troops in response. The armies of various races aimed to encircle the human star domain, cutting off the 4 battlefields from the human star domain. However, every attempt to encircle them ended in failure, as the strength of the human army far exceeded their expectations. So far, it has only been army clashes, with the real battle yet to come. Everyone is aware that the real war is still far from beginning. If this war truly erupts, it will be the largest-scale war in 100,000 years. It might last for half a year, with unpredictable outcomes. If they win, they might severely damage the human race. If they lose, the human race will surely not spare them. They do not have the same resilience and foundation as the human race, and losing would mean they might not be able to recover. Aside from the war, all races are also cautiously guarding against the ghost race. The mysterious disappearance of the Qinghe clan is still fresh in memory, and everyone fears such bizarre incidents happening to them. Lin Mou has finally mastered the method of forging talismanic treasures and immediately begins to try making them. Talismanic treasures can be made purely from runes, or with the help of some materials. Generally, the stronger the runes and materials, the more powerful the talismanic treasures will be. Purely rune-made talismanic treasures are mostly for one-time use. Lin Mou takes out the golden sword, which, after numerous battles, has several notches. Looking closely, there are also many cracks on the sword body, indicating it could break at any moment. The Celestial Saint likely did not anticipate Lin Mou's combat intensity to be so high. Lin Mou plans to repair and even enhance the golden sword with runes. Drawing complex runes in the air with his fingertips, he dismantles and recombines them into a talisman array. The talisman array operates, generating red flames to anneal the golden sword placed within it. He continues to draw various runes, each strike on the golden sword acting like a hammer, embedding rune imprints. With more strikes, the number of runes on the golden sword increases. The runes weave together, forming small talisman arrays. These small talisman arrays combine to form a larger talisman array. Days later, the golden sword shines brightly, its notches and cracks from the golden rule completely healed. The golden sword has not only been restored but has become even stronger. Consisting of 81 talisman arrays, it is considered good among mid-tier talismanic treasures. Being able to forge a mid-tier talismanic treasure on his first attempt, Lin Mou admires the golden sword, pleased with his technique. Talismanic treasures also have their rankings, divided into low, mid, and high tiers for each realm. If there are only 36 small talisman arrays, it's considered low tier. More than 36 but less than 100 talisman arrays is mid tier. Over 100 talisman arrays are considered high tier. There's no limit to high tier talismanic treasures, starting from 100 to 10,000 arrays, endlessly. With Lin Mou's understanding of runes, combined with the level of the golden sword itself, its rank has now reached that of the Other Shore realm, comparable to mid-tier treasures of the Other Shore realm. After admiring his creation, Lin Mou plans to forge another talismanic treasure. Having just mastered the forging of talismanic treasures, he is eager to put his skills to use. He has plenty of materials from countless battles, lacking nothing. All the resources of the Qinghe clan are now his, making Lin Mou a walking treasure trove. Just as he prepares to start, the warship suddenly stops, slowly turning back to its original course. Have we arrived? Lin Mou checks the time, realizing 3 months have passed unknowingly. Learning the art of forging talismanic treasures took a full 3 months. The destination is reached, and Lin Mou is ready to continue forging talismanic treasures. In the silent void, Lin Mou looks around, barely noticing a glimmer of light. Found it! Lin Mou smiles slightly, his purpose for coming to the outer domain not only to obtain the last inheritance of the Saint Talisman Celestial, but also to find the Supreme Red Star. He had marked the location before and knew its approximate position. However, after so much time, the Supreme Red Star is no longer in the original place, having moved far away. Quickly traversing hundreds of millions of kilometers, Lin Mou once again sees the Supreme Red Star. The Supreme Red Star looks the same as before, unchanged. A supreme being awakened by a star, living for about 200,000 years, double that of a saint. But for existences like the supreme red star, living for 1 billion years without accidents is not a problem. This is their greatest advantage, not having the same lifespan limits as others. The supreme red star has almost no hope of advancing further to become a celestial saint. Advantages come with disadvantages, such as the fairness of the great world. If one thinks deeper, the essence and reasons become clear. The supreme red star senses Lin Moyu's arrival, its deep voice breaking the silence. "Little guy, you're back. Haven't found your way home yet?" Lin Moyu laughs. "Greetings, senior. I've been home already. This time I specifically came to find you." The supreme red star owes, "For me?" Lin Moyu says, "I was fortunate to obtain the Sea Realm shell." Boom! Flames boil. The supreme red star erupts with boundless flames, reaching millions of miles, turning the surrounding space bright red. The previously cold void's temperature spikes to billions of degrees in an instant, even making Lin Moyu uncomfortable. His purple-golden body glows, blocking the scorching heat. If it were an ordinary divine sovereign, they would be incinerated instantly. Lin Moyu could not have anticipated the supreme red star's excitement. All because of hearing the word Sea Realm shell. What secrets lie within the Sea Realm shell, he wonders. Lin Moyu felt that the aura of the Red Star Supreme was extremely unstable and his soul was vibrating crazily. Lin Moyu couldn't help but ask, "Senior, are you okay?" "It's okay." Red Star Supreme seemed to be gritting his teeth and holding back some emotion. After a long time, the Red Star Supreme finally calmed down and gradually recovered. Red Star Supreme whispered, "What are you going to do?" Lin Moyu didn't understand what I planned to do at all. "Senior, what do you mean?" Red Star Supreme asked, "You have Jiahai Bei, and you have no plans to leave this world?" Lin Moyu asked strangely, "Is it possible to leave this world with Jiahai Bei?" The Red Star Supreme finally realized that he had asked the wrong question. "Your realm is not yet close, and you cannot leave for the time being. But you have Jiahai Bei, and you can choose to leave when you reach the Supreme Realm." Lin Moyu shook his head and said firmly, "I will not leave." Red Star Supreme asked again, "Are you sure you don't want to leave?" Lin Moyu confirmed again, "Sure, I have too many concerns in this world." The Red Star Supreme sighed, "That's good. Back then, I heard that those heavenly lords were discussing whether to leave the big world. At that time, some supreme beings also agreed with heavenly lords' idea, nor. Do you know if they are gone?" The Red Star Supreme was seriously injured and left early. He didn't know much about what happened next. However, Lin Moyu knew that those heavenly lords had indeed left the world. Although it was understandable to choose to leave for the sake of their own lives, Moyu didn't really like their choice when they returned to Lin. The Red Star Supreme doesn't seem to like their choice either. Red Star Supreme's anger rose on his surface, and he transformed into an old man in a red robe. The old man looked at Lin Moyu, "Looking at you, I already know the answer. After all, they are still gone." Lin Moyu said, "Yes, I'm sleepy." The Red Star Supreme laughed, "I know that those heavenly lords value their own lives more than anything else. Whatever home, whatever relatives and friends, it's all a drag on them. For yourself, there is nothing you can't do dirty work for." It looks like he is laughing, but he is actually scolding. In the eyes of the Red Star Supreme, those Tianzins are all selfish guys, and they should give up and abandon them for their own sake. Lin Moyu declined to comment. He had never had any real contact with Tianzuan, and the only thing he had touched on his waist was a wisp of spiritual wish. However, he felt that Red Star Supreme was right. Those heavenly lords were indeed somewhat selfish. If it were not selfish, Huanwu Tianzuan would not abandon Xiaowu. Holy Talisman Tianzuan is not much different, the same is true. The voice of the Red Star Supreme shook the starry sky. They just did it, but they still found various excuses, as if they were helpless. Lin Mo said, "When those heavenly lords left, did they also take some supreme beings with them?" Red Star Supreme said, definitely, although there were not many Supremes in the big world back then, there were still tens of thousands of them. How could it be possible for all of these Supremes to die in battle? There would always be some who survived. Or, follow them. But it's impossible to take them all away. Some Supreme beings won't leave. Lin Moyu strongly agreed with Red Star Supreme's statement that everyone is different, some people will leave, and some people will not. To leave the big world, you must at least reach the Supreme Realm. Only a few of those Supreme relatives and friends can reach the highest level. It was just that there were tens of thousands of Supreme beings in ancient times, which still shocked Lin Moyu. Red Star Supreme looked at Lin Moyu. Little guy, tell the truth. If you reach Supreme, will you really not leave? It's okay. It doesn't matter if you really want to leave. I'll scold you a few times and won't even blink at you. Lin Moyu smiled and said, I won't leave. The Red Star Supreme nodded. Okay, I'm going to tell you what you have to do with me. Lin Mo said, after I accidentally got the Jiahai shell, I accidentally saw the Jiahai and the big world. In the Jiahai, the big world will collide with another world, Wang Chantai about 130. Year Q. The Red Star Supreme whispered, did you see the world above the boundary sea, or did you see it below the boundary sea? How deep did that world sink into the boundary sea, and how big was it compared to the big world? How? Lin Mo said, as seen from the boundary sea, about 1/3 of the world is sunk in the boundary sea. The scale should be less than 1% of the big world, so it is not big. The Red Star Supreme shook his head, it's already very big. The big world only grew to this level after swallowing hundreds of worlds. But you said that only 1/3 of it sank into the world sea. Still heavy. Senior, please explain clearly. Lin Mo said he didn't know why and sincerely asked for advice. He remembered that Holy Talisman Tianzuan also said something similar. The boundary sea was obviously divided into upper and lower areas, but Lin Moyu didn't understand the difference between upper and lower areas. And the Red Star Supreme said the same thing now, and Sleepy Moyu wanted to know why. Red Star Supreme said, I don't know the specifics. I have never been to the boundary sea. It's just that when Tianzuan talked about crossing the boundary sea, he talked about our world. When half of a world sinks into the world sea, Tianzuan will be born in this world. The reason why our big world is so strong is because when it was still very weak, there were factories that were half submerged in the original sea. So Tianzuan was born in our big world, and the worlds we encountered later did not have Tianzuan. Lin Moyu finally understood that there was such a thing. Red Star Supreme continued to explain, this is just one of them. It also depends on the size of the world. The bigger the world, the more powerful people there are. Even if there is no Tianzuan, there are still many. It's thick. And this ratio increases exponentially. The larger the volume, the more amazing the increase. In the world you see, they don't have a heavenly one, and the strongest one should be the supreme one. And he is only less than 1% of the size of the big world. The Hanzun in the box should not be larger than Kai Che. The Red Star Supreme made his own judgment. After hearing this, Lin Moyu felt a little headache. 10 Supremes are already a lot. If the two worlds really collide, the big world will most likely not be able to withstand it. Xiang Duo, who is the most powerful person in the human race, is also known as Xing Lao. Basket of famous people. Everything else combined can't defeat a supreme being. The difference in strength is huge. The Red Star Supreme said, you don't have to worry too much. There are still more than 1,000 years. If we make some arrangements for Wangda, we will not be able to survive if we are caught in the middle. Lin Moyu looked at Red Star Supreme and asked, how to make arrangements? Red Star Supreme said, it's a long story, but roughly speaking, it is to use the stars in the big world to form a formation. I call it the Great Formation of 10,000 stars. It gathers the power of 10,000 stars to write back the Supreme Fat Chong. But setting up this formation will take a lot of time. Lin Moyu asked, how many years will it take? Red Star Supreme said, a formation requires at least 10,000 stars. After condensation and arrangement, there will be almost 100 troops. Lin Moyu made a quick calculation. One formation lasted 100 years, and 10 formations lasted 1,000 years. But it can't be calculated that way. There is more than one formation master. The Red Star Supreme broke Lin Moyu's fantasy. Only I can arrange this formation that meet Tian's disgusting gift. Lin Moyu was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that the Red Star Supreme was a star that attained enlightenment. He became the Supreme after awakening his spiritual wisdom. The 10,000 stars formation was his talent. In the ancient times, Supremes were everywhere, and there were also quite a few celestial saints. The Supreme Red Star's 10,000 stars array, which took a lot of time and effort to set up, was utterly useless back then. But now, the 10,000 stars array has become a killer weapon. The Supremes are gone, but the threat remains. Compared to the ancient times, the great world has significantly shrunk, with fewer star systems and scarce resources. However, tens of thousands of stars can still be gathered. Lin Moyu calculated the time and prepared for the worst scenario. In 1,300 years, two dangerous worlds would collide. After the collision, the Supremes from the other side would surely invade the great world. By then, the number of 10,000 stars arrays could very well determine the life and death of the great world. Setting up each 10,000 stars array requires 100 years, so there's no time to waste. Before that, he plans to annihilate all other races, making the great world unified once again under human territory. This would eliminate future worries and allow for full commitment. There's a saying among the human race, focus on external threats only after sorting internal affairs. If internal issues are not resolved, there's no point in talking about external threats. Lin Moyu said, currently, the situation of the human race is not very good. Various races are uniting to wage war against the human race again, Senior. The Supreme Red Star interrupted Lin Moyu. I understand what you mean, but this cannot be forced. Lin Moyu was somewhat puzzled and looked at the Supreme Red Star, wondering why. However, he did not voice his question, trusting that the Supreme Red Star had his reasons. The Supreme Red Star explained, although I am a member of the great world, I am not of the human race. The matters between the human race and other races must be resolved by themselves. Lin Moyu quickly understood. The Supreme Red Star, though a member of the great world, is not a human. The cause and effect between the various races and the great world are only a part, and more lies between them and the human race. Therefore, this cause and effect must be resolved by themselves. If the Supreme Red Star intervened, it might not necessarily sever the cause and effect, and it could even bring trouble upon himself. The cause and effect that even the great world struggles to bear, how could a Supreme handle it alone? Lin Moyu also understood some of the Supreme Red Star's thoughts. He is not acting for the human race, but for the great world. He is willing to fight for the great world because it is his home, and he is its child. But he would not act for the human race, as they are not directly related to him. Even more so, the Supreme Red Star disapproves of the celestial saints within the human race. If the Supreme Red Star were so free, he could simply leave, hide in the deepest parts of outer space, where no one could find him. He could even kill himself and take the Sea Realm shell, ensuring his survival even if the great world collapses. Lin Moyu fully understood and bowed to the Supreme Red Star. Thank you, Supreme Red Star. The Supreme Red Star nodded. Regarding the 10,000 stars array, I need to make some preparations. I will go deeper into outer space, and once ready, I will contact you within the realm. Then, a mountain-sized red stone flew from the Supreme Red Star, continuously shrinking until it was only the size of a fist and landed in Lin Moyu's hands. The red stone was semi-transparent inside, with burning flames, yet it felt cool to the touch. The Supreme Red Star said, carry it with you, I will contact you when I come. Lin Moyu stored the stone. Is there anything specific I should do to prepare? The Supreme Red Star thought for a moment. If you want to save time, prepare the stars. Other than that, there's nothing else. Within the warship, Lin Mou held the Sea Realm shell, filled with thoughts. The effectiveness of the 10,000 stars array is unclear. The Supreme Red Star said it could rival a Supreme. But that's just a comparison, not necessarily a victory over a Supreme. Moreover, the 10,000 stars array has never been used. Its actual effectiveness remains unknown. 1,000 years later, if the number of Supremes from the other world exceeds the Supreme Red Star's estimate, or if the 10,000 stars array's effectiveness is not good, Lin Mou thought, it's still best to rely on one's own strength. He cannot fully depend on the Supreme Red Star. His own strength is crucial for overcoming dangers. A simple plan forms in his mind. First, become stronger, then eliminate internal threats, and finally confront external enemies together. The plan is straightforward. As for the details, they need to be worked out. Suddenly, the warship violently shakes. While flying rapidly through deep space, the warship suddenly hits an invisible solid wall, getting violently shaken off course. Lin Mou reacts quickly, stabilizing the warship in an instant. What happened? Lin Mou feels a massive energy from the space's fluctuations. The battle appears in the outer space layer, with Lin Mou witnessing a huge array covering hundreds of billions of star space. The array cuts off the star space, not sparing even the deep space. Such a scale of array is enough to compare with the strongest arrays known. Lin Mou looks at the array with a peculiar expression. It shares many similarities with human arrays, but is not exactly the same. In his memory, aside from humans, no other race is adept at such arrays. Suddenly, the array lights up, then begins to expand and deform, its massive energy passing through the array and enveloping the surroundings. Lin Mou's expression changes, and he disappears with a step, retracting the warship. Just as he leaves, a strange force sweeps through the void. 10,000 kilometers away, Lin Mou reappears. His expression worsens as his space law is forcibly interrupted, managing only a teleportation of 10,000 kilometers. Space is sealed, rendering space laws temporarily ineffective, requiring adjustment. Boom! A dazzling light shines in the distance, the array collapses, and Lin Mou sees the inside of the array. The battle inside is intense, with various laws wreaking havoc in the star space, accompanied by the power of rules. All high-level divine sovereigns. Lin Mou mutters to himself, then quickly retreats. The battling party is none other than the dragon race. And the dragon race's opponent, recognized by Lin Mou, is the bug race. They are actually battling here. Lin Mou watches from afar. In the Divine City, he had seen news of the dragon race battling the bug race, but that was years ago. He didn't expect them to still be fighting. In the starry sky, colossal elemental dragons roar, wielding laws to unleash endless attacks. Whirlwinds, blazing flames, thunderbolts, and freezing ice. A variety of elemental laws explode, causing the starry sky to rumble incessantly, with billions of kilometers of star domains almost entirely engulfed. Under the relentless bombardment of elemental laws, the bug race is pushed to the brink. The bug race looks quite ugly, but their attacks are incredibly powerful. Gigantic bugs spew green slime from their mouths, which turns into sharp arrows aiming at the dragon race. The elemental dragons seem somewhat wary of the slime, avoiding it continuously. The battle affects a vast area, with not a few but thousands of elemental dragons involved. Each one is a high-level divine sovereign, with many among them being peak divine sovereigns. Though the bug race's individuals are weaker, they outnumber the dragons, forming a massive swarm. The battle is closely contested, with no clear winner in sight. The dragon race is indeed strong. Lin Mou watches the battle, turning into a spectator at this moment. Tens of thousands of divine sovereigns exist among humans, but tens of thousands of high-level divine sovereigns is something else entirely. High-level divine sovereigns are not common, they can't just be brought out at will. And Lin Mou is well aware of the dragon race's internal structure, which is a pyramid, with the weakest members being the elemental dragons. Recalling the dragons he encountered in a past instance, they seemed insignificant compared to the current ones. These are the real elemental dragons, all existing as high-level divine sovereigns. As for those in the minor worlds, they are merely insignificant mixed-blood dragons. According to Antares, those mixed-blood dragons don't even belong to the dragon race, their bloodline diluted and polluted over countless generations. Elemental dragons are the lowest tier within the dragon race, above which are the sacred dragons and the true dragons. Previous reports of the dragon race battling the bug race mentioned a divine dragon leading the charge with 10 sacred dragons and 100 elemental dragons. Now, it appears the scale of the battle has expanded 100-fold, with over 10,000 elemental dragons. Sacred dragons and divine dragons have yet to be seen, likely at the center of the battlefield. The bug race's strength is also undeniable to be able to contend with the dragon race to this extent. Compared to the dragon race, there's even less information about the bug race. Why does the dragon race not care about the destruction of the great world, yet takes offense when their kin are insulted? After so many years of conflict between the two races, it's uncertain what the outcome will be, but it seems the dragon race is not gaining the upper hand. As Lin Mou enjoys the spectacle, a frost dragon covered in ice heads straight for him, opening its mouth to spray icy breath towards him. Lin Mou reacts swiftly, spreading his wings of the undead and retreating quickly while breaking the soul lock. The frost dragon relentlessly pursues, its gaze locked onto Lin Mou. Flapping its wings, the dragon is as fast as Lin Mou, not lagging behind. With space sealed, Lin Mou cannot use his space law and must rely on the wings of the undead to dodge. He asks, "Why are you attacking me?" The frost dragon, with anger in its voice, replies, "You are an enemy of the dragon race, and you must be killed." Lin Mou immediately understands why, recalling his previous killings of many dragons. The dragon race has a trait that if someone kills their kind, a unique aura that only dragons can see clings to the killer, lasting thousands of years. Even though those in the minor world were mixed-blood dragons, this trait was inherited. Lin Mou didn't expect to still be targeted for this reason in the great world. Somewhat amused and not wanting to directly confront these dragons due to Antares, Lin Mou refrains from action, recognizing the elemental dragons as formal members of the dragon race. Killing mixed-blood dragons is one thing, but killing true members of the dragon race could provoke a collective attack. The dragon race's attitude towards outsiders is clear from their behavior towards the bug race. Lin Mou is not afraid but decides to try talking first. "Can we stop and talk?" The frost dragon continues its pursuit without responding, launching countless icy arrows in the starry sky, clearly intent on killing Lin Mou before any discussion. But how can there be a discussion after death? Lin Mou's patience wears thin, facing a high-level divine sovereign, probably around the 7th rank. Killing him should not be difficult. After considering Antares and their past encounter with the dragon god, Lin Mou restrains himself. Thinking quickly, he summons a spectral 9-colored dragon above him, using the 9-colored dragon spirit crystal, a treasure of the dragon race. Possessing. The dragon spirit crystal usually signifies friendship with the dragon race. Having a 7-colored dragon spirit crystal indicates a very close relationship. In human history, few have obtained a dragon spirit crystal, and someone with a 9-colored dragon spirit crystal is unprecedented, even among ancient celestial saints. The appearance of the 9-colored dragon spirit crystal halts the frost dragon, which pauses, contemplating its next move. Lin Mou stops as well, facing the dragon from a distance. The frost dragon finally speaks, its voice surprisingly feminine, questioning Lin Mou's relationship with the dragon god. Lin Mou responds tersely, hinting at the dragon's lack of standing to inquire further, which irritates the frost dragon, leaving it at a loss for words. "Then, am I qualified to know?" The loud voice echoed through the starry sky, causing ripples even in the sealed space. "Saint." Lin Mou was slightly startled by the voice and looked over to see a giant dragon enveloped in a rosy glow flying towards him. "Sacred dragon." Lin Mou recognized at a glance that the approaching creature was a sacred dragon. Sacred dragons rank in the middle of the dragon race hierarchy, above elemental dragons but below the true dragons. However, they possess the potential to advance to dragon status, making their real position quite significant, with a fair amount of authority, as the vast majority of the dragon race's military commanders are sacred dragons. The sacred dragon before him, possessing the strength of a saint, is among the stronger sacred dragons. His power rivals that of a typical dragon, and he is on the path to becoming a dragon, likely achieving it in the future. Lin Mou silently thanked Antares for once sharing the internal structure of the dragon race with him, which made him understand the significance of a middle-tier existence like this sacred dragon. Although a saint, there was no need for excessive courtesy, especially since a mid-tier member wouldn't know too much. Lin Mou remained calm. Suddenly, he felt this sacred dragon seemed familiar. The sacred dragon's eyes also showed a hint of recognition. "You're Saint Light." "You're Lin Mou." Both exclaimed each other's names in unison. Lin Mou hadn't expected such a coincidence, meeting someone he knew in such a vast expanse. Back in the instance of the Dragon King's palace, Saint Light made a good impression on him, being an upright and straightforward dragon. Saint Light could sense the dragon resentment on Lin Mou. The dragon resentment on you must be from killing those mixed-blood dragons in the minor world. Lin Mou nodded, "Yes. I'll help you remove it." He emitted a beam of white light, which Lin Mou allowed to shine on him without dodging. He felt as if something was being removed, knowing it was the so-called dragon resentment. The resentment left by dragons on their killers accumulates. The more dragons killed, the thicker the resentment. Lin Mou had killed many mixed-blood dragons, but fortunately, they were only mixed bloods with diluted bloodlines, so the resentment wasn't too heavy. Soon, the dragon resentment was completely cleared, and Saint Light announced, "All done, the resentment from the mixed-blood dragons is removed." Lin Mou responded with a smile, "Thanks." Saint Light remarked, "Didn't expect you to come to the great world and advance so quickly to become a divine sovereign. No wonder the dragon god thought so highly of you, calling you a rare genius." Lin Mou modestly replied, "I just got lucky." Saint Light frowned, "But I remember the dragon soul crystal the dragon god gave you was a 7-colored one." Suddenly, Saint Light seemed to realize something and quickly added, "Never mind, I don't want to hear it." Lin Mou chuckled, appreciating Saint Light's discretion. Lin Mou put away the 9-colored dragon spirit crystal and changed the subject. "You've been fighting the bug race for many years, how come there's still no winner?" Saint Light glanced at the battlefield. "Even if we fight for another 100,000 years, there won't be a winner. This matter doesn't concern you, it's our dragon race's affair. Actually, this ongoing battle is quite beneficial, keeping our forces sharp." Lin Mou sensed there was more to Saint Light's words, but didn't pry further, respecting his wish not to elaborate. Lin Mou asked, "Is there anything I can help with?" Saint Light shook his head, "No need, we can handle this. I've heard your human race has been facing some troubles recently, you should be careful." Lin Mou acknowledged, "Thanks for your concern, I'll be careful." Suddenly, the battlefield changed dramatically. The elemental dragons attacking the bug race retreated in panic as a green light exploded, forming a sea of green spreading in all directions. All dragons were retreating, trying to escape the onslaught. Saint Light's eyes narrowed, and he roared, "It's the corpse bone sea from the bug mother, retreat." Although Saint Light's warning was unnecessary as all elemental dragons were already retreating. Lin Mou also retreated, realizing the terrifying nature of the corpse bone sea, a force unlike any law or rule he had encountered before. The corpse bone sea, boundless and vast, could envelop several star systems, far larger than his bone hell. If the corpse bone sea appeared in the human star domain, the death toll would be unimaginable. As the corpse bone sea expanded to its limit, Saint Light let out a dragon's cry, "Be careful, they're coming." All elemental dragons braced themselves, watching the seething green sea closely. The sea boiled, bubbling up and then bursting, as gigantic bugs over a kilometer in size surged out, each a high-level divine sovereign. The elemental dragons were ready, engulfing the giant bugs in various colored dragon breaths. Saint Light, a saint-level sacred dragon, did not act immediately, knowing his time to intervene hadn't come yet. Lin Mou observed the corpse bone sea, concluding, this doesn't seem like a power from the great world. The corpse bone sea belonged to neither law nor rule. He thought of the cultivators from the Black Blood realm, a force alien to the great world. Saint Light began to speak, indeed, it's not from the great world. But then abruptly stopped, realizing he might have said too much. However, his partial admission was enough for Lin Mou to understand the bug race did not originate from the great world. No wonder historical records about the bug race were scarce. It seems the dragon race knows the truth, but has chosen not to disclose it for some reason. Lin Mou looked meaningfully at Saint Light, making him uncomfortable, until Lin Mou reassured, I understand, and Terry said the same. Saint Light squawked, can we not mention that name? Lin Mou laughed, what's wrong with Antares' name? Saint Light replied, in our race, that name is taboo. Lin Mou inquired, what happens if it's mentioned? Saint Light explained, it could lead to death, but with your 9-colored dragon spirit crystal, most divine dragons wouldn't dare harm you. How is he doing? Lin Mou smiled, he's fine, should be coming out soon. At this, Saint Light became visibly agitated, his scales standing on end, unable to utter a word. Lin Mou had gotten the confirmation he sought, as you said, understanding is enough. Saint Light nodded vigorously, understood. Thanks, Lin brother. Quickly adopting a familiar tone, Saint Light now considered Lin Mou a brother. The information Lin Mou provided was crucial to him. Looking at the corpse bone sea, Lin Mou asked, is there no need for concern? Saint Light reassured, no need, we can handle it. Chapter 2096, The Insect Mother Explodes. Saint Light insisted that Lin Mou's help was not needed, and with a confident demeanor, Lin Mou did not insist further. He decided to truly become a spectator, watching the epic battle unfold between the two races. Countless bugs surged out of the corpse bone sea, only to be blocked by the elemental dragons. Despite the bugs vastly outnumbering the elemental dragons, their combat power was significantly inferior, and they were ultimately unable to break through the dragons' defenses. Subsequently, the corpse bone sea began to shrink rapidly. At the center of the corpse bone sea, a giant bubble was forming. Saint Light's expression changed slightly, the bug mother is coming. It's my turn to act, Brother Lin, you should be careful, this might get dangerous. Lin Mou replied, don't worry about me, I can protect myself. He had already sensed the power of the bug mother, which was on par with Saint Light, being at the level of a saint. But what of it? Even if a saint wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be easy. He was merely a spectator, not participating in the battle, so the mere remnants of the fight wouldn't affect him. It was an opportunity for him to gauge the true combat strength of the bug race. He had once coincidentally connected with a bug mother, feeling its tremors. However, that bug mother seemed different from the one present. Lin Mou was quite unfamiliar with the bug race, unclear about their composition. He had only known a little about them from Antares, now understanding that the bug race was not from the great world, but from beyond it. Cloaked in rosy light, Saint Light approached the center of the corpse bone sea, targeting the bubble that had swelled to its limit with a thick dragon breath. The sacred dragon breath landed on the corpse bone sea, causing thick smoke to rise. Mist danced in the starry sky, forming fog-like entities. The bubble burst, releasing a gigantic bug with millions of tentacles and a body so large it had hundreds of wings, each razor-sharp and extending outwards over a vast diameter. Thousands of tentacles, each as sharp as a deadly weapon, danced through the starry sky. Wherever the tentacles passed, the starry rivers fractured, leaving cracks in the starry sky. As the corpse bone sea rapidly shrank, everything was drawn back towards its center. Lin Mou realized that the boundless corpse bone sea was actually released by the bug mother. Saint Light clashed with the bug mother, their tremendous powers causing havoc in the starry sky. All elemental dragons retreated, unable to withstand the might. This is the bug mother. Its abdomen is somewhat large, probably filled with bug eggs, Lin Mou observed, analyzing various possibilities. The power of the bug mother was unique, not of this world. Lin Mou also noticed that Saint Light's powers seemed special. Although his attacks contained light-based laws, they differed from the light laws Lin Mou knew. Lin Mou realized, it turns out, not all are from this world. Like the bug race, the dragon race might not originate from the great world, he speculated. No wonder the dragon race observed the invasion and changes in the great world from the sidelines. Because they were not beings of the great world, they were indifferent to its fate. The dragon race was the true spectators, watching for millions of years. However, considering the dragon race's existence since ancient times, their existence likely had other significances, shrouded in mystery like the bug race. Maybe one day, with enough strength, he would uncover all secrets. Saint Light and the bug mother battled fiercely, both saints, their combat waves spreading across billions of miles of starry sky. Lin Mou stood amidst the aftermath, his body glowing with a purple-golden light, unaffected by the battle's remnants. Surrounding elemental dragons watched Lin Mou curiously, sensing his physical strength was not inferior to theirs. Lin Mou ignored their gazes, focusing solely on the battle. Saint Light fully unleashed his combat power, dominating the bug mother. Despite the bug mother's resistance, it was suppressed. Suddenly, a massive phantom emerged behind the bug mother, depicting a colossal bug nest, shaking violently as countless bugs flew out towards Saint Light. This is its rule world. Lin Mou was surprised, witnessing the bug mother deploying its rule world. Saint Light roared, his own rule world materializing, filled with divine light and purity. This was Saint Light's rule world, sacred and pure. Balls of white light flew from his world, brightening the starry sky like countless white stars. Under Saint Light's protection, the bug mother screamed piercingly, its voice carrying a soul impact, unbearable for many. The gap between a saint and a high-level divine sovereign was vast, the soul impact alone being difficult to withstand. Only Lin Mou, also possessing the strength of a saint, was unaffected. Seeing the elemental dragons groaning in pain, Lin Mou deployed high-level runes, soul-stabilizing runes. These runes aimed to stabilize souls and weaken external soul impacts. Lin Mou wasn't sure of their effectiveness, but it was worth a try. The soul-stabilizing runes exploded in the starry sky, covering large areas. Elemental dragons under the protection of these runes showed signs of relief, though still enduring the soul impact, albeit to a lesser degree. It seems to work. Lin Mou continued to produce soul-stabilizing runes, spreading them across different areas. Using multiple tasks, he drew faster, protecting the elemental dragons. Receiving protection, the elemental dragons looked at Lin Mou with gratitude. Lin Mou, acting on instinct, did not dwell on their reactions. The clash between Saint Light and the bug mother lasted for half an hour, both saints causing billions of miles of starry space to tremble. The bug mother's rule world began to fade under Saint Light's influence, unable to escape its fate. Suddenly, the bug mother's body swelled. Saint Light urgently warned, "Run, it's going to self-destruct." A saint self-destructing was a terrifying prospect. All elemental dragons immediately retreated, fleeing as if their lives depended on it. Lin Mou, having experienced a saint's self-destruction before, knew its horror and prepared to flee. However, glancing at Saint Light, he decided to follow in the same direction. Unable to use space laws, Lin Mou's speed couldn't match Saint Light's. Saint Light called out, "Why are you following?" Lin Mou smiled, "I think I can be of help." Boom! The intense explosion shattered the starry sky. The bug mother's body and its rule world exploded together, spreading a terrifying green sea that corroded even space. Protected by a white light, Saint Light resisted the green sea's corrosion. Lin Mou wielded the golden sword, its runes creating a massive shield, protecting them from the closest impact. Other elemental dragons, farther away, fared much better, using their full strength for protection. Space completely shattered, chaos ensued, but Lin Mou awaited this moment for space laws to restore.